It's not just executives and coaches who make big sports business decisions. Judges and juries have a major impact on the industry. We'll talk sports and the courts with super lawyer David Boies.
I don't think the suit is frivolous. This is a very unusual case.
Speaking of judgments, what's the true cost of Hall of Fame voters shutting out the class of 2013?
I'm not sure that there isn't a negative or positive upside to these guys not getting in.
And everybody likes to make predictions on sports, so we could have told you there'd eventually be an app for that.
This quarter, users have made 4 million predictions.
We predict that if you keep watching, you'll be informed and entertained. So stay with us on Sportfolio. Hello, I'm Rick Haro, and welcome to Sportfolio, Bloomberg's weekly inside look at the business of sports. If you study groundbreaking developments in the sports industry, free agency, huge television contracts, and franchise relocation, to name a few, chances are you'll find legal rulings that pave the way for change. Today's court cases often define tomorrow's business model. So we're honored to welcome one of the world's eminent legal minds to talk with us about sports litigation. David Boies, chairman of the firm Boies, Schiller and Flexner. He's argued many times before the Supreme Court, represented leagues, players, and teams in a number of cases involving sports. He joins us from Los Angeles today. Hey, David, they say there's no such thing.
Good morning.
Good morning, David. They say there's no such thing as sports law practice per se, but you're a go-to guy for this industry. What's the most memorable sports case you've personally ever worked on?
Well, there have been a number. Certainly the defense of the NFL lockout a couple of years ago was an important case, but so was the representation of the Basketball Players Association in fighting the lockout in that industry. So both of those are two recent cases that were certainly fascinating. When I represented NASCAR a few years ago, when they were accused of being a monopoly, that was probably one of the most interesting cases because it gave me an opportunity really to get to know a sport that I really had not been intimately involved with before.
Let's talk about the America most popular sport, the NFL, concussions in the NFL. And, you know, as of today, more than 4,000 former players filed lawsuits against the NFL relating to brain trauma. What's going to happen with these lawsuits, and how serious is the threat to the NFL and professional football generally, in your estimation?
I don't think there's necessarily a threat to professional football. I think that this problem is increasingly something that both the players and the league are aware of. I think they're going to try to address it. I think it's a serious problem. It's certainly a very serious problem for the people who have suffered over the years, particularly during periods of time when people were not as alert to the danger as they are now. I think that there are serious economic issues that have to be resolved. There are serious safety issues that have to be resolved going forward. But I think the NFL and the players will, over time, work it out.
You know, the bottom line is process. The suit seems to be moving forward. The players have until January 28 for a brief. The NFL has hired others. What's the process and the timeline, and when do you think we'll get resolution to this matter?
The process, unless there's a resolution by settlement, is going to take quite a while. The initial process is going to be to have to determine how many of these cases go to court, if any, how many of these are resolved in arbitration, if any. So you've got to figure out what is the right forum to resolve these issues before you actually get to the issue of what is the ultimate resolution going to be.
Well, we understand, therefore, the concussion issue is not going to be resolved overnight. But another legal tangle for the NFL, the fallout from Bountygate. Now, this was handled as an internal investigation by Roger Goodell, who does have complete control of the league discipline under the collective bargaining agreement. But Jonathan Vilma also has a defamation suit pending against Goodell. What could the impact be if he wins that suit?
I don't think there would be an enormous amount of impact from that suit. I mean, that's a very special situation. I don't think that that's something that's going to, for example, chill the commissioner in terms of the exercise of his authority. I think there's an interpretation of what was said and what the circumstances were. I think the commissioner has some very good arguments defending that lawsuit. But however that lawsuit comes out, I don't think you'll see any material change in the way the NFL operates.
Now, of course, the former commissioner, Paul Tagliabue, vacated the Bounty Gate penalties. Does that undermine Goodell's defense or not, in your estimation?
Not really. That was a process, a procedure that was available. You make decisions, and sometimes those decisions are reviewed. Lower courts, trial courts make decisions all the time that are then reversed or modified by appellate courts. So the fact that somebody up the sort of chain in the adjudicatory process makes a different decision, I don't think undermines necessarily the good faith and the sensibility of the original decision.
Collective bargaining agreement, it's set in the NFL for 8 years, but if you're advising a league and you deal with player discipline, is the message, if you're going to tinker with it, players, you better bargain for it?
Oh, I think that if you're going to exercise any power, you need to bargain for it. I think that the issue is how specifically do you have to bargain for it. And I think that different people can have different interpretations as to what the meaning of various collective bargaining provisions are. But I think the general principle is exactly right. If you're going to exercise power, you've got to bargain for it. And the issue is, have you bargained for it? And our more general provisions, perhaps more general than specific, do they cover the specific or not? I think that's really the underlying issue that you've got to deal with as a legal interpretation.
David Boies, we're going to take a recess, but please stay with us. We've got a few more cases to ask you about.
Great.
Coming up, Chris Christie says sports betting should be legal in New Jersey. A lot of very powerful people want to stop him in court, and Pennsylvania wants its money back from the NCAA. More with David Boies, plus the bottom line on baseball's Hall of Fame controversy, all ahead on Sportfolio. Welcome back to Sportfolio. We're talking sports litigation with David Boies, chairman of the law firm of Boies, Schiller & Flexner, and a man who's argued some of the highest-profile legal cases of all time. Bush-Gore to the Microsoft antitrust case to the same-sex marriage in California. David, a case that could have tremendous national impact may soon be heard in a U.S. District Court in New Jersey. Governor Chris Christie said he's going to ignore federal law and declare sports betting to be legal in his state, and the move's being contested in a lawsuit by the NCAA and the 4 major pro sports leagues. How do you handicap this clash of titans?
I think that the federal government probably has the better part of that argument. The issue of the extent to which a state can determine that a particular activity within its state borders is going to be lawful, even though the federal government, from an interstate commerce standpoint, declares it to be unlawful on a national basis, is something that the courts are facing all the time. Sports betting is a little bit different than marijuana smoking, but the same legal issues arise in California right now, where the federal government is prosecuting people for growing marijuana for medical purposes, which is lawful, expressly lawful under California law. So the issue is the federal government only has the power to regulate things like gambling or marijuana based on its power under the Constitution to regulate interstate commerce. Now, what is interstate commerce? Is somebody going to a New Jersey betting parlor to bet on a sports event, interstate commerce? Certainly, if growing marijuana in California and consuming it in California affects interstate commerce under the Constitution, probably the sports betting affects interstate commerce and hence can be regulated by Congress. So if I were sort of trying to figure out how this lawsuit was going to come out, despite my high regard for Governor Christie, I think he's got an uphill battle.
Well, he's got an uphill battle, but are the stakes beyond New Jersey, Nevada, Oregon has a little bit of this, but would the win by the states open the revenue floodgates for another opportunity to generate some cash for their respective coffers?
Sure. I mean, just like casino gambling has for various states. One of the things you have to take into account is that unlike casino gambling, sports gambling is something that you don't need large casinos to operate in. So once you open the floodgates, you could have this proliferate in essentially every state that was prepared to do it. And if it's going to be done, I think you'll find a lot of states that may want to jump in.
And speaking of gambling, let's turn to the political perspective and a political gamble. Earlier this month, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Corbett filed suit against the NCAA. He claims that the sanctions against Penn State were an overreach and caused irreparable harm to the businesses in his state. He wants the penalties overturned, and by the way, the $60 million fine revoked, and many analysts called the suit frivolous. What say you?
I don't think the suit is frivolous. Again, I think that the NCAA probably wins that lawsuit. But I don't think it's frivolous. I think that the issue is whether this is the kind of issue, the kind of controversy that the NCAA really needs to address and really has the power to address. The NCAA has a substantial amount of power to act collectively in order to make its sports league operations work. You've got to have cooperative collective activity to make a sports league work. Whether you need this particular power is what is going to be litigated in this lawsuit. And while I think the NCAA does ultimately prevail, this is not a frivolous lawsuit. I think there'll be some serious issues that will be resolved here.
The NCAA may have the legal ability on their side. Politically, some people say they may be unraveling conference musical chairs, the BCS issue. Is there more incentive for them now to settle as opposed to have a serious challenge against their authority, or not?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I think the NCAA continues to be a strong, active force and very much a force for good. I think the NCAA will continue to develop, and the issues that happen with respect to some of these conference changes and things like that, I think that's just part of the normal process. I think that this sanctions issue is different. I think this sanctions issue does go to sort of the limits on the power of the NCAA. I don't think that this case is going to materially change those limits. This is a very unusual case, and I think that however this case is resolved, it's not going to challenge or reduce the power and authority of the NCAA in its conventional operations.
Most important legal question I'm ever going to ask you, 10 seconds. Who wins the Super Bowl by what score?
San Francisco and New England in the Super Bowl. San Francisco 28-27.
You don't get that insight everywhere, folks. David Boies, thank you so much for your time and your expert analysis. Please come back on Sportfolio anytime.
Thank you.
Coming up, nobody made it into baseball's Hall of Fame this year, but who did the protest vote truly hurt? Andy Dolich joins us next to examine the economic impact of none of the above. And our stumper this week is all about Cooperstown. Can you name the two players whose induction ceremony drew the largest crowd in Hall of Fame history? Answer when we return. Here's the answer to our Sportfolio stumper. The largest crowd in history at baseball's Hall of Fame induction ceremonies showed up in 2007 to celebrate the enshrinement of Cal Ripken Jr. and Tony Gwynn. We can safely predict this record will not be broken in 2013. For the first time since 1960, not one living person was elected to the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Sammy Sosa fell far short in their first year on the ballot. Joining us to discuss what this Hall of Fame shutout means to the business of baseball, Andy Dolich, longtime sports executive who now writes the Bizball column for CSNBayArea.com. Andy, no question that the baseball writers protesting the legitimacy of the steroid era, but who are they really hurting with this vote?
Ultimately, I think they're hurting themselves because they've put, to a certain extent, the end to the debate this time through. But if you look at the attendance in baseball, if you look at what has really happened over the last decade and a half, nothing is really hurt. Because fans are coming to the games, players are setting records, none of those records are being asterisked. This is a very confusing time for baseball, the Hall of Fame, and I think other sports to come.
Well, of course, teams traditionally capitalize on Hall of Fame inductions with special events, merchandise, promotional opportunities. Let's say Biggio or Piazza make the Hall in a normal year. How much does this snub cost the Astros, the Mets, and while we're at it, Cooperstown itself?
Those athletes that have kind of been thrown in the mix as maybe rumored to have done something or part of this class of steroidists of this time, I think they're hurt the most. In terms of what teams generate on Hall of Famers, it's somewhat minimal. I mean, right here in San Francisco, you've got Barry Bonds, who's kind of been the poster child for all of this, and Bonds shrugged his shoulders and said, hey, if I'm in, I'm in. If I'm not, I'm not. My records are still there. I'm still a great player. I'm still going to make money doing the other things that I do. And in today's world of reality show, nanosecond attribution, and Lance Armstrong going on Oprah and crying and say, yeah, I guess I did it, I'm not sure that there isn't a negative or positive upside to these guys not getting in.
Pete Rose, as you know, makes a lot of money selling himself as a baseball outlaw. Could that actually be more profitable course for these guys to undertake?
Well, I heard the reviews of Rose's new reality show, which I think debuts this week, have not been very good, and so he probably won't. But these autograph shows, the incredible amount of money that goes into sports memorabilia today, and the fact that we are sort of in this outlaw society, I mean, give me something that isn't black or white, but is more gray. I think there is a story to be told here, and these guys have people around them that need to make money. So they're going to push these athletes, the guys that aren't getting in. But when you have people at the head of the class, like Bonds and Roger Clemens, I think they'll stay back because they know eventually they're going to get in, and they don't want to sully their record even more than it already is.
This seems like a Hall of Fame system and process that really benefits nobody. Why is it broken, and how would you personally fix it?
Some people are saying, hey, there should be a new Hall of Fame. It should be a traveling show. When you look at it, Rick, how many people actually get to Cooperstown? It's a very difficult place to get to, and yet it has great history. So are we going to have to rewrite the rules? Is this a popularity contest, or is this based on stats? For me, if this is based upon stats, then those players should be in. Clemens and Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. They weren't suspended, they weren't arrested, they weren't kicked out of the game, and therefore we're playing with strange rules. I would surmise that there are players in the Hall of Fame now that actually were breaking the PED rules.
Well, and I guarantee you we play this interview back same time next year. We've got the same issues, and maybe even the year after that. Hope not, but possible. Andy Dolich always giving us food for thought on Sportfolio. You're in our Hall of Fame, my friend.
Great to be with you, and I'm clean as the driven snow.
Still to come on Sportfolio, a new product that gives sports fans the power to predict the future. Is pre-play the future of mobile gaming?
What we're really after is to become a new layer of the internet.
And don't miss our show next week. We'll sit down with some of America's sports-minded mayors and discuss the role of sports in driving urban economies. Wednesday at 9:30 on Sportfolio. Get Sportfolio wherever you go on the Bloomberg TV Plus app for iPad. Welcome back to Sportfolio. As Super Bowl 47 approaches, you might see it as an opportunity to sample some of the interactive second screen technology that enhances the big game experience. Pre-Play is a New York startup that's trying to capture a share of this market. We sent Dom Chu to check it out.
What we try to do is present really simple guessing options for every single play of a live football game.
Pre-Play was founded on the principle that half the fun for sports fans is figuring out what will happen next.
I was sitting at a baseball game with a good friend of mine. Actually, he ended up becoming my co-founder. And we were thinking to ourselves, this game is boring. We were thinking, what could make this better? And we thought, a prediction game. 6 months later, I'm at Cornell. I'm having some fun with a PhD student there. We're talking about Could we create an algorithm that would accurately predict future sports plays? So I thought back to this experience at the baseball game with my friend, and we thought, we could turn this algorithm plus this sort of app idea into a really compelling game.
After the eureka moment came the moment of truth, turning that concept into a company.
The first thing that we had to do was empty our bank accounts. And after we did that, we had about $20,000. And with that $20,000, we were able to engage an agency that built our prototype.
The plan and the prototype impressed John Chachis, who signed on to chair the startup's board.
They're smart guys, really smart guys. But the second piece of it that was so compelling is when you played the game, the early version of football, it was fun.
Since the application went to market in 2011, more and more users have joined in on the fun.
In our entire first year of having pre-play games up, people made about 50,000 predictions in a year. Our second year, users made in total about 1 million predictions. And this quarter, users have made 4 million predictions.
And investors have kicked in nearly $4 million in financing.
It has application across a wide variety of live sports, which sell themselves because they are the largest draw for audience in the world. So as long as we kind of get it right and we help find the right kind of people that are interested in live sports and the digital economy, this little company has done pretty well when it's set in front of people.
Preplay's revenue model is old school. When there's a break in the live game you're following, they break for commercial messages.
We never do the cardinal sin of asking a question while there's action on the field. Never do it. If we do that, we're bugging the user.
These games don't fight with your viewership of a football game or your viewership of a baseball game. It works with it. And I think that really has been the secret.
Over in England, they have what's called microbreading. We call this live prediction gaming. And so this live prediction gaming is all about the little things about a game. In baseball, we do everything from every bunt and steal and at bat, and football every single down.
Major League Baseball and the NHL have also partnered with Preplay. Jamie Lease of MLB Advanced Media likes the way the app engages his audience.
So what Preplay gets is they get to partner with us, who've been dedicated for over 10 years of just working very, very hard to bring a compelling experience digitally to our fans. And then what we get with Preplay is we get an opportunity to raise that engagement level.
We're really good at grabbing a user and keeping his attention for a very long period of time. Our average user spends between 45 and 50 minutes at a time, at a session, playing our game, because one question leads into the next and they just love it.
The next hurdle for this young company? The Super Bowl, an event that's tailor-made for Preplay's product, but will test its ability to handle unprecedented traffic.
We have to take literally thousands of guesses in 1 second, receive them, and then give back points at the exact same moment. Last year, during the Super Bowl, we had about 50,000 guesses. And I believe very strongly we're in a position to scale at least 50 times over that.
So, if Super Bowl 47 goes off without a hitch for Preplay and its users, Daines has bold predictions for his business.
We're really just trying to take over the world. So what we're really after is to become a new layer of the internet. Facebook is the social layer of the internet. Instagram is becoming the pictures layer of the internet. We want to be the prediction layer of the internet.
Preplay rolled out its baseball app for the 2012 playoffs, and CEO Andrew Daines says October was a trial by fire that prepared his team to handle this year's Super Bowl. He hopes success in this event will ultimately lead to a partnership with the NFL. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Sportfolio. Our thanks to David Boys, Andy Dolich, and the folks at Preplay for being part of our program. And thank you for watching. Visit Bloomberg.com for more Sportfolio video and Bloomberg Sports business coverage. I'm Rick Haro. See you next time.